Hello and welcome. I'm Ijoma Onyato. Tonight, Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association suspends planned strike after government's intervention. Queues return to petrol stations across Nigeria as commuters and vehicle owners frown on long hours spent on the lines to buy petrol. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo decries payment of poor wages for workers as he advocates proper scrutiny for the minimum wage structure. And South African Vice President Cyril Ramaphosa wins ANC leadership race ahead of former chairperson of Africa Union Commission.
On business news tonight, Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation reports increase in distribution and sale of petroleum products across the country for the month of September.
On sports news, Nigeria's 18-year wait continues as Super Eagles forward Victor Moses fails to make the final three-man shortlist for the CAF Player of the Year award.
And from Abuja, President Muhammadu Buhari extends tenure of service chiefs following successes recorded in the fight against insurgency.
We begin tonight with the suspension of the planned strike by the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, PENGASSAN, following the government's intervention of a few hours before the takeoff of the industrial action. The Director of the Department of State Services, the Minister of Labour and Employment, and the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources all met with the executives of the union for an agreement. The oil workers had called for the strike following the expiration of an ultimatum it gave to the federal government to address issues they consider detrimental to the welfare of their members. PENGASSAN is also alleging anti-labour practices against some of its members by some indigenous oil companies, sacking of workers by one of the oil companies due to their involvement in union activities, and the non-remittance of workers' taxes to the PFAs by the same company. The union will hold fresh talks with government representatives in January 2018 to address other pressing issues affecting their operations.
It was also agreed at the meeting that the resolution reached will be reviewed after 3 months to determine the adherence of the country management to the details of the resolution. The meeting also resolved to address the anti-union posture of other indigenous companies and the abuse of court processes to stop the resolution of issues, including Specialty Drilling Foods, SDF, SETCO, Century Energy, Oil Data Services, Frontier Oil, Universal Energy, Mobil Producing Nigeria, and Fugro by the 3rd week of January 2018 to avert a full-blown industrial crisis and ensure that they abide by the Nigerian Constitution, external labor laws, and ILO conventions. In view of the above and the spirit of the Yuletide, on behalf of the National Executive Council of PENGASSAN, Central Working Committee hereby suspends the nationwide strike with immediate effect, and all members have resumed normal duties immediately. We commend Nigerians for their understanding and continue to promise to act in a morally justified way that will enhance the dignity of labor and reduce unemployment in the country. Long live PENGASSAN, long live Federal Republic of Nigeria, Anuta, solidarity, forever. Injury to one, God bless Federal Republic of Nigeria.
But before PENGASSAN called off the strike, queues had already returned to many filling stations across the country. The queues had disappeared last week, but Nigerians woke up to see the long lines of cars again. Some drivers and commuters spoke about the hardship they're already experiencing as a result of the scarcity.
Like a bad toothache that refuses to go away, queues at filling stations have surfaced across the country. In Abuja, the nation's federal capital territory, motorists are screaming blue murder as they cope with the situation.
Unnecessary hardship on people is not nice at all, especially at this Yuletide season. A lot of people want to travel, but because of this fuel situation, it's not good at all.
It's not possible for me to be happy going around to look for fuel. Look at my tank.
In the northwest Kano state, these tricycle operators wish they were queuing to hail passengers, but they'll need fuel first. As the motorists do likewise, they lament their condition and appeal to the federal government.
Leaving my job, coming here waiting for fuel is stressful, it's disappointing. What we want to do, you need the fuel for mobility.
We are appealing in particular to the federal government that they should endeavor to do all they should do in order to bring the end to this oil scarcity.
Akwa Ibom State in the south-south is a different kettle of fish. Here the queues are few and far between, but the pump price of petrol has increased astronomically.
In Akwa Ibom here, we're always the first to increase fuel price and the last to bring it down.
170 per liter. Some place, if you go there, 180. But now if you see 170, now buy them here. When you come back again, you can buy 180.
The Department of Petroleum Resources has a bone to pick with these airing petrol stations in Abeokuta, Ogun State. They are being sealed for flouting government directives.
The effect of those filling stations that have been sealed is that they have run foul of the law because some of them are under dispensing, which means they are cheating the public. For every 10 liters that people buy, people are being shortchanged for 1 liter. And some of them have fuel they are not selling. This is denying the public of the resources that this country is known to have worldwide. So those people that are sealed, until they are penalized and they are fined, they will not be opened.
As Nigerians groan under the weight of the situation, consumers appeal for urgent intervention from the federal government, with the Christmas holidays just around the corner.
Now let's take a look at the current situation as it stands now. And joining me from Abuja is a special technical advisor to the Honourable Minister of Labour and Employment, Mrs. Chinedu Dike. Thanks a lot for joining us on the news at 10.
Thank you.
Now, from what we understand, both sides have come to some sort of an agreement. We've heard from the other side. Could you tell us what the terms of this temporary settlement are, if that's what we can call it for now?
Yeah, I will not call it temporary settlement. The issues were settled. PENGASSAN declared a trade dispute against the management of Nekonde over the sack of their branch chairman. A meeting was held on 14th of December, and we reached some understanding. And at the level of implementation, there was a kind of miscommunication. But today, the government and the social partners, by that I mean PENGASSAN and the Nekonde management, we all sat together and we resolved the issue. And the management of Nekonde recalled the sacked branch manager, or branch chairman of PENGASSAN. And with that, the issue was resolved. Outstanding, though, are some other issues not related to this particular one. Bordering on unfair labor practices, cutting across several indigenous companies in Nigeria in oil and gas sector. And the Honourable Minister of Labour and Employment has promised to hold a conciliation meeting over all those issues by 3rd week of January 2018. So I would say that the issues in dispute pertaining to this current start, the last strike by PENGASSAN, the issue has been resolved.
Okay, I know you've said that it's been resolved, but if you look at the statement from PENGASSAN as well, it does show that one of the key issues that they had was the anti-union posture of certain indigenous companies. You've spoken about one, and the tendency to abuse court processes. So is there also a guarantee from you tonight that the issues have been resolved before the 3rd week of January, which is what you seem to have agreed there, that all is now well?
Yeah, guarantee. I will not use that word, but we have promised, the Ministry of Labour has promised, and there will be a conciliation meeting to resolve other issues. By other issues, I mean the trade disputes, or rather, because there's no, I can't talk about trade dispute right now until it's declared what we call from TD3. But right now, we have, the matter is before the Ministry of Labour and Employment of unfair labour practices by those companies. And by 3rd week of January, as I stated earlier, we are going to call all those other companies and with PENGASSAN and address those issues of unfair labour practices.
All right, some of the internal issues that which indigenous companies tend to have far-reaching consequences on the average Nigerian. You've seen the story we have on the fuel queues. They've been pretty long. What is the ministry doing to avoid this kind of thing happening before you have a last-minute reaching out to unions? Because it tends to affect everyone, even if some of the issues that are on the table affect specific workers in a particular company. So why this approach? Is there no other strategy that the ministry can adopt?
Is there really a strategy? We have procedures for addressing trade disputes, and strikes are usually the last resort. And most often, that happens at the stage of non-implementation of understandings reached at conciliation meetings. And Ministry of Labour, we are proactively addressing those issues, as I stated. This particular one that led to this strike today that caused the fuel queues happened because there was a miscommunication over the weekend. We had earlier held a conciliation meeting on Thursday, December 14th, and we reached amicable understanding on how to move forward. So we are proactive. If we talk about strategy, that's the strategy of the Federal Ministry of Labour. We are proactive.
Yes, I hear you. I know you do say that you are proactive. Some people criticize shall I say, the workings, saying that it's some sort of a cycle. You see that they go on strike, and then they respond by saying there's an agreement. They go on strike again, and so you have some sort of a cycle going on. So we know we're coming into a new year. Is the ministry looking into such different ways of handling pressing issues finally now in the coming year?
A cycle means that the matter was not resolved and it reoccurred. But that's not the case. But generally, to answer your question, yes, the ministry is looking into all the issues, not just in oil and gas sector, but in all the sectors of the economy of this nation.
All right. Technical advisor to the Honourable Minister of Labour and Employment, Mrs. Chinedu Dike, thanks for sharing your thoughts on the News at 10 tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, has called for scrutiny of the minimum wage structure across the Federation with a view to relating systems of payment. At a seminar in Abuja, Professor Osinbajo raised concern about the meagre wages, especially for public servants, which is largely responsible for corruption and bribery in the country. The Vice President noted that all employers must be compelled to run a contributory pension scheme to help lift many Nigerians out of poverty.
Mr. Femi Adesina.
We need to enforce some kind of adherence to a minimum wage structure, and not just a minimum wage to the lowest paid person, but minimum wages across the board, especially so that there is a certain amount of regulation of how people are paid and what they are paid. Now, if, for example, we were to review ministers' remuneration, review, what would you guys say? I mean, you'll be all over the press saying, what does the country earn, this and that and all that. But the truth is that we cannot pretend that these are wages that make sense. They don't make sense. How is it that the president of a country earns 2 million naira? Why? If a president of a country does not earn as well as a CEO of a good company, of a good private company, then there's something wrong with that kind of system. What is a pay that ensures that people don't go and improvise in their, whether it is brown envelope or blue envelope? What's the kind of pay that gives a man enough dignity to say, I'm not going to be accepting or going to make demands of people, when they give me a brown envelope or whatever it is? And I think that debate is something that we ought to have.
In part 2, after the break, appeal court refers dispute on Kogi East Senatorial District to the High Court for resolution. That's in a moment. Please stay with us.